Good afternoon to our distinguished audience and participants from all over the world. We have been having Digital Africa 9.0, and this is the third day in a row. Right now, we're going to be having a fireside chat with an experienced entrepreneur. His name is Ogbonna Ukuku. He's the executive director at the Nigeria Global Chamber and CEO of ONS Triumph Limited. Mr. Ogbonna Ukuku, you're most welcome to this fireside chat. If you can hear me, please let me know you're here. Yeah. It's an honor to have you here. Now, the subject of our fireside chat would focus on identifying and boosting investment opportunities in the tech space. And one of the things I would like us to talk about is to quantify the investment opportunities in the tech space. How would you quantify the investment opportunities that we have right now in the tech space? Looking at the fact that the tech space has been at the forefront of getting investments. There are other areas that has gotten investment, but when you look at the tech space, it has gotten much more funding than other areas. First question should be, second question actually should be, why do you think it's the tech space that's getting this kind of funding? First question should be to quantify the investment that we have had and possibly give examples of these investments in Nigeria and across Africa. You're most welcome once again.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, and I want to welcome everyone that's participating in this particular event. It's very key for every nation. Every nation that wants to grow must embrace investment, and then especially when it has to do with the technology and the tech space generally. Now, looking at quantifying the extent of investment that that exists within the tech space, it will be a bit difficult to numerically say this is how much it's worth or this is how much it's not worth. But whether we like it or not, it is huge, and it's a space that, if you ask me, in Africa, we've not even gone far. We've not even done so much. Owing to the fact that I know probably when we get to that stage, I can break it down a bit further, because there are certain things that must happen before you begin to attract some high level of investment vis-a-vis people wanting to put their money in the tech space. Because one, a lot is involved, research and development is involved, property rights protection is involved, policies of government, being able to commercialize some of this, this invention. So if you ask me to quantify, it will be a bit difficult because, like I said, it's just a drop in the ocean that has seen. As an investment promotion expert, I can tell you that, yes, a lot has happened. A lot of people have taken the bull by the horn. The space, is quite huge, and then people have actually enjoyed, have made profit in the space. But I can't give you numerically, like I said earlier, the amount that we have gotten as far as this space is concerned. But whether it's huge, yes, it's huge, because a lot of people have done so much in this space. But compared to countries like India, compared to countries like China, in the US and other developed countries, we have not done so much as far as I'm concerned.
So much compared to other countries. Now, this takes me to the conversation of trying to bring up, in fact, when we talk about this tech space also, it's only recently that we have begun to see that we're beginning to see investments in the agri space. Majority of these investments also go directly to fund fintech. Why do you think that's the situation?
Yeah, it is because there's a disruption as far as efficiency in the system is concerned when it comes to banking services. People that provide services generally. So it's been a progression from the cashless policy of the central bank, from payment systems that are a bit more efficient, building a more robust structure, that would remove, like we say, monkey hand in Nigeria, removing monkey hand from the pot. Because when it's tech, there's no human being. It's more about a technology driving the process. So that the investment you are seeing is basically because they are providing backbone for the payment system. I mean, the fintech, they're providing backbone for the payment system that everybody has come to embrace. That have also helped in curbing corruption. That have helped in bringing about efficiency in our payment system. So that is why you have seen some of these companies that have either borrowed borrowed new ideas from developed countries and then bringing it to developing countries like ours. So it's not far fetched why those investments are being made in that direction. Because whether we like it or not, disruption has happened. Payment systems have changed. People have to embrace them. People have to provide those technologies. Companies have to be able to provide those platforms that people will use to make those exchange when it comes to buying and selling or trade generally.
That would you say that we have startups that are too premature and they're already receiving funding, looking at the rate of failure of these investments?
Now, see, this is where I said one of the issues we need to discuss is actually the things that impede the growth of research and development. Yes, the backbone for fintech or the technology space is actually research and development. Now, if you look at when you don't have VCs as a venture capital system that works, it becomes a bit difficult. Yes, if you go back to whenever we're talking about venture capital, everybody's eye goes to the United States of America. That's the country that have had venture capital work. Now, if you look at the US and then look at Nigeria, you will see that we have not even scratched the surface when it comes to venture capital. What are the things venture capital? Yes, these are expensive funds, angel investors. They are the ones who help you come up to a level where you can actually become bankable, help you do your business plan. They are the ones that will take the initial risks for you to, bring out money for you to do your research and development. And then they are the ones that go with you to the lab, providing those funding that you need. We call them bootstrapping. Now, if you don't have those bootstrapping abilities within your system, it becomes a bit difficult for you to even begin to measure how many failures that you have had. If you see where these things are working, like in the US and in India, there are so many failures. But it's just that VCs or venture capitalists know that even if I fail 300 times, once I succeed, one success story is enough to cover for all my losses. Because technology, the space is like blood money. As soon as you succeed, it covers up for the days, the things that you have lost in the past. So we can't even overemphasize on this, but all we have to say is the system, the venture capital system in Nigeria has to start working. The venture capital system in Africa, when I say Africa, I always remove South Africa and part of North Africa. When it comes to sub-Saharan Africa, there are things that we must do to create equality within the system when it comes to financial inclusion, as in people who are willing to support technology, those who are willing to support some of these hubs, where young people sit down to create some of these, these new innovations that drive process, that drive, income, that drive, things that create even employment that we've been talking about. If we embrace these things and then tactically make sure or twist people that have made some money, so much money in the system to claw back those kind of money to support the tech hubs, you will see what will happen. So some of the things, these are the things that actually scare them. They don't understand that it's a system. Yes, there'll be a lot of failures, but those failures are not for you to quit. Those failures are for you to know how not to do a particular thing again, and then you move on. And as you move on like that, you will definitely, get your quick and high return on investment, which is actually what happens at the end of the tunnel.
This is really great to know that regardless of the failure of startups, it shouldn't deter investments in these startups because when they get this investment, it will cover for the days where they haven't really made much progress. So thank you for that insight. So what are the parameters that you would say makes a startup ready for investment? That's one question. On the other hand, what do investors look out for? So, what are the parameters that makes a startup ready for investment, and what do investors look out for before funding a startup?
Now, when it comes to the tech, when it comes to the tech space, what investors really look out for, they look for something that is workable. They look at the workability of what you have developed. Now, if they see that it's workable and they look at the commercialization of what you have developed, if it's something that is ready for the market, it'll be easier. It's easier. Now, all you need is to scale. Scaling up, you have done maybe your dummies or you don't know your dummy. It's until you get to that stage where the dummy is self-explanatory, where anybody will look at it and say, okay, this is where I'm going to cash out from. Because, like I always say, investors are the most selfish people in the world. And every investor all over the world, they have a culture. And that culture is a way of life. Every investor sees their money as their life. So it's just like taking out your life to go and put in somebody else's life. Okay? Now, for me to take my life to give to somebody, I must see something tangible. So I must see something that, that I can, the risk associated with it, I can mitigate. But if I cannot see those things, it becomes a bit difficult for me to even want to put my money in it. So what they look out for is profitability. They look out for commercialization strategy. They also look at the policies that surround the environment, vis-a-vis what are the things the government has put in place, or what are the things that could, that could stall, such investment, moving up. Of course, they will also look at the competitors that you have. Is there something different? Most startups are all entrepreneurs. I call them entrepreneurs, but they're trying to look for better ways to do what originally exists. And then there is this thing. I always believe that most policymakers, most people, a definition they give to entrepreneurs that actually, get me worried, because there's a big difference between sole proprietorship and entrepreneurship. A sole proprietor, I always use something as an example. A friend of mine, Ifti Wadigo, used to work for a company called State and State. There's a ticketing company. They sell tickets. Now, if he starts her own business and opens another ticketing company, calling it Ify Ticketing Company. Now, what Ify is a sole proprietor? She's not an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is the guy who started wakanow.com, who brought out a new way of selling tickets online, not come to my place and I write a PNR for you. No, you can actually, get your ticket online. So that's the difference between a sole proprietor or a sole proprietress and an investor. Sorry, and an entrepreneur. So for you to be an entrepreneur, you must have been able to create a new market. You must have been able to create a new product. You must have been able to create, you know, a new way of doing things. So that is exactly the thing I believe that everybody needs to understand. And for you to merge that with what are the parameters that that give investors confidence as far as investing in a business is concerned. When it comes to tech space, that is what they look out for. They look for entrepreneurs, those who have created something new, not somebody who's trying to duplicate what already exists in the market. So my advice would be for everybody to look for better ways to do everything that exists. People always say that there's no new thing under the sun. I tell them, yes, I know there are no new things, but a new thing. You can find new things. It's still going to be under the sun. You can create a swimming pool that is not a stream. It's still under the sun. So there are ways you can make your own swimming pool look different from other people's own. You know.
It's really fantastic listening to you talk about how important the funds of investors are to them and why they won't just let it go without conducting due diligence. Now, you have also mentioned a sole proprietor and a person who is an entrepreneur. Would you say it's risky to invest in a business that's a sole proprietorship business than a business that's probably a limited liability company? Because it's also possible that a sole proprietorship business is getting demands and sealing the numbers even better than a limited liability company. I probably have seen businesses like that. What is the difference, or what's the major factor that would influence getting investments for these businesses where a sole proprietorship business is already getting numbers even better than a limited liability company? Is there any risk associated with that?
Of course, in as much as you're getting your numbers, there's always a distortion in the market. I will be able to, I should be able to de-risk every transaction that you're doing. That today, that you're cashing out from, maybe you're doing a betting business online and you're cashing out, does not mean that tomorrow something else will not come into play that will now take that out. So for me, it's sustainability that I'm looking at as an investor. Being as a trained investment promoter, my job is to see things from an investor's prism. So I look at investors, I understand their culture, I live inside of them, I work with them, I see the way they see things. First things first, an investor's interest, because investors are resource seeking, their market is seeking, their efficiency is seeking. They're also, when I talk about efficiency, I'm talking about what you have in that system. Let's say your cash flow is moving well, and I look at your books. I can't even see you, hire an auditor, an independent accounting firm to run the audit of your company. That's enough to scare me. I would say no. This person is still doing business where he does not. You see, you have to be investor ready for you to attract investment, because investment or investors, they are like water. They flow to areas of least resistance. So if they see there are things that they don't understand, they don't like dark places. They like things being clear. And most of the time, I say this: monies are not given to everybody. Monies are only given to those known. So if peradventure you want to come in there, Emma?
Yes, you said money does not do what? I want you to repeat that so we can hear it loud.
I say monies don't go to everybody. Monies only go to those that are known. So that is why, even if you go back to the Bible, the rich get richer, and then the poor remain poor. So, but it takes a while for the poor to come over. But if I wanted to do something, let's say for example, you wanted to build a house, you would rather give it to a company that is efficient. You would rather give it to a company that is known for efficiency than give it to one guy who says, I have been building houses without showing you evidence that they have built houses. So that is how it works. So it's the same way with investors. Their nature, the culture of an average investor, he wants to see evidence. And then again, when you have a third party associate in that business, like I use the example, your auditors, your account, working with an accounting firm that is well known, you can afford to pay them. It makes me comfortable as an investor. In the first place, let me say you have maybe let me not overblow it and use someone like Deloitte, or I use Ernest and Young to do my audit. If I can afford to pay, that is enough for any investor to say, oh, for Ernest and Young to be here, that's someone known. These people they are serious. So I'll work with them. So I just use that as an example. There are other smaller auditing and accounting firms that have actually proven themselves. But those are the names that just came to my head. So I'm not running that back to anybody. So please don't mind.
This is fantastic. It means that credibility can actually be built by using the services of already known names and brands to verify what a startup is actually doing already in the industry. However, why do we still have a high rate of failure, despite the fact that these investments are coming in, but the rate of success is quite low than expected?
I mentioned this earlier. See,
Yes.
it sounds as if the rate of success is quite low because the rate of trials are still low here. So in percentage, if you look at it in percentage, the people who are going into, see, until you solve the problem of financial inequality in our system as Nigerians, it will be difficult for you to have those large, investments in research and development and then, tech hubs. Because whether you like it or not, what really happens most of the time is you find most of our people still depend on family members, friends, and then people were able to talk to put in money in some of these some of these tech hubs. But in a place like United States or where in India, where venture capital has started working so well, or in Europe, you will see that there are offices where if you have something, okay, let me use this as an example. The owner of Facebook, if he was in Nigeria, I don't think he would have succeeded because in the US you have you have organizations that protect your intellectual know-how. You have agreements that you can sign, property, those rights. Then you have venture capital companies where if I walk into your office on Wall Street, you know, and you say no, I can go to maybe 50 or 500 other companies that might believe in me. So in a system where you have limited angel investors, the rate of failures will still look, a lot, but it's not a lot because the trials are not a lot. So what you see succeeding in other space or in other clients is because they have a structured system where if I walk into that office, before I walk into a VC's office or an angel investor's office, as you are signing to see the person, there's also a non non-disclosure or non-convention agreement that I'm signing before I sit down to discuss my business with you. But in here, where I'm the one begging the investor, I'm actually begging. But in the US, it's the other way around. Investors beg those who have technology to come. But here, people that have technology are begging the investors. So you don't even sign anything. You are the one begging. So they use reluctance as a strategy. Tomorrow you can just drop something on someone's lap and then the person tries to go and try it. And then because he's not the one that developed technology or developed the entire thing, it will fail because you don't have all the idea. Like the man who received the vision. So that is why some of the failures, I've given you 2 points why some of the failures are occurring here. So a wrong system and then circumvention that happens within our own system. Then where you have efficient angel investor or venture capital system. Those are the basic things that inhibit the entire tech space. And then again, let me add this: education, because for you to talk about research and development, you need to also look at the educational sector of the country. If people are still busy here spending their time to read, to discuss how Jonah was swallowed by fish, in schools, and then you see you cannot, you see you can't succeed because your contemporaries in China are already studying in primary school. They're already studying, intro to tech space. So when they build with it, they understand phantom from kids. They understand certain things and then you are busy analyzing how David killed Goliath. So those are things we need to understand. The educational system has to change to embrace research and development so that the success rate we will have here will be higher.
Exactly. Now, it's important to note that the other resource persons that we've had have always talked about knowledge, going for research and development. And I think that's one of the things that we have to do here. But then I'm bringing one of the points that you have mentioned back to you to say that you have mentioned using credible hands to do your audit, to do your accounting processes, to probably do your recruitment. For a startup that's converting not yet much, how do they still build this credibility to become worthy in the eye of an investor?
Like I said, let me use that phrase again. Monies are not given to everybody. Monies are only given to those known. So what you do is begin to find partnership with those known. This is where the work comes. Now, if you find partnership with those known, when you marry someone that is known and become partner with someone that is known, life becomes a lot easier. That's the advice I always give to startups. Look for those who are already doing well and become friends with them. Or you have a signage with them. Then you begin to see people get attracted to you. Now you ask me the next question: if they can't afford, okay, let me even use some of the things that happen here in the music industry. There are people that they've been singing since nobody knows that they exist. They have they are one of the best vocals and all of that, but nobody knows they are the best. As soon as they do collabo with Whiskey, they do collabo with Davido, everybody now begins, oh, this guy can sing, go. So that's how it works. So it's the same thing. You can use the same strategy to actually put yourself out there. Then you ask again, if I don't have enough money to do that, how do I solve my problem? This is where I said VCs, venture capital always know. Because when I draw my plan, I'll tell you, I'm going to spend this amount of money to buy credibility, to buy relationships that will put us out there. So it's not just about what I have developed. It's not just about my research that I have done or development I have done, but it's also about those I have partnership or those I'm working with, and then that puts me out there in the public space, and then makes people want to embrace me and want to put money into my business.
Wow, this is really very interesting. But then, looking at the fact that most entrepreneurs and startups in Africa actually bootstrap right from the beginning. If I do not have demand yet to show for my idea that has eventually become a product or a service, what do I sell to the investor?
I'm losing you. I'm losing you. I'm losing.
Okay. Okay then. Can you hear me now, please? Okay, while we're waiting for Ogbonna to tell us about what investors need to do if they're not yet making money, so what should startups do if they are not yet getting demands, they're not making money, the idea is promising, they've been able to validate what product market fit will be, but they're not just yet making money. So what do they sell to an investor? Does it prove anything to the investor, or they're probably just wasting their time?
And that's why it's a big difference. Most of the time, from experience, working with entrepreneurs, I've come to realize that most times your idea to you is always the best thing that has happened to life until the idea is scrutinized by a third party. Now that is when it begins to make sense because there are some things they will see that you can't see. Because it's your idea, you believe, like I said, you believe it's the best thing that has happened. So it's always good for investors to always drop whatever ideas, entrepreneurs to drop whatever ideas or inventors or innovators to drop your idea on the palm of an independent or a third party business analyst who will look at it from all fronts. Or if, like for example, some people sometimes reach out to people like us and say, okay, I want to approach an investor. This is what I have. From day one, I'll tell you, you have nothing. And I'll just tell you straight up because I'm not going to patronize you because that's exactly what you're going to get when you meet an investor. You will know that you have nothing. If you have something, everybody, I was just about to sound like a normal Nigerian slang. They rush you. They will be rushing you. Investors will rush you. Are you not to hear that companies people that have designed payment systems that people are paying them almost 200 and something $1 million to take the technology of them. These are things you can't. So most of the time, I tell entrepreneurs, see, it might look good to you, it might not look good to the next person. So it's always good for you to, drop it on the desk of someone who is sound, someone who look at it dispassionately because you are passionate about it. So you always give it someone who will look at it dispassionately and give you a real rundown of the success parameters that exist and then the failure parameters that exist within that thing that you have created.
So it's very important that no matter how we keep thinking an idea is good, we should ensure that it gets numbers. We should ensure that there is cash flow before we begin to seek for investment. That's a really good one to hear from you. Now, we have seen tech hubs try to support entrepreneurs and startups with knowledge, tools, and even venture capital. Do you think this is one of the ways to go, or are there other things that we need to do in this part of the world to support early stage entrepreneur by ensuring that we incubate their ideas and help them turn it into products or services so they can get ready for the market and begin to make conversions?
Yeah, like I said earlier, there are things you need to do. One of those things that must be done is to expand the space. It's a bit too small, and when it's small, it becomes when it's small, you don't have the latitude to explore. You don't have the latitude to negotiate. So it discourages a couple of some of these entrepreneurs when it becomes a bit you are locked in because you can't do much. That's number one. Then number two, I also like to advise the government to create a robust a feedback mechanism to understand and understudy what entrepreneurs go through, what investors go through, or what the space needs for it to flourish, so that they can create enabling environments for these things to flourish. Let's say there are licenses that are required. How long does it take for the license to come? And then number three, the government needs to also create incentives. Incentives are good for startups like this. Then four, they need to create special funds. Creating special funds must not just come from the pockets of government, just like we have the ETF, the Education Trust Fund. There has to be a trust fund to support research and development in Nigeria. Where the money is going to come from, they will come and consult me. I will tell them where it will come from. They will pay me to get that advice already. Some of us have done a survey and we understand that there are certain things that can happen, and then you have enough resources to support where people can take advantage of to build some of these to support the tech hubs, and then to support their good ideas, and then at the end of the day they can find a way to repay within the system. But like I said, until you have an effective unencumbered venture capital system, it will be difficult for you to have a lot of developers or inventors or people who can create new things that would meet the times that we are in. So that will be it for now. Okay. If I remember any other thing, I can let you know as we go forward.
Thank you for that once again. I have seen startups that didn't get investment because they've been told that their team composition isn't good enough to drive the idea. Aside from finance, getting capital to run the business and product market fit and all of that, how important is team composition in running a business?
It's as important as the business itself, because if you don't have the people that have the right technical know-how, you have for me, one of the reasons why I don't even mention it is because let's say these guys are not on the board of the company. The people that have the required CVs are not, or resumes are not on the board of the company. It's okay, you can hire such people. But every entrepreneur knows that you can't come to me as an investor. You don't have the right team. Of course, you're wasting my own time as an investor. You're wasting my time coming to talk to me. So you have to be, that's part of being investor already. There are things you must have the right composition, you must have the right numbers. Like I said, what investors look for, they are resource seeking, they are market seeking, so they can see the numbers, they can see the market. You have also, you've shown that, you have the market to drive, to sell whatever it is that you're created. So, the team is as important as the business itself.
That's fantastic. Usually, we have this dichotomy of traditional business on one side and a startup on another side. Is there a difference between a traditional business and a startup? And how would a traditional business migrate to become a startup?
I think Emaya, you want to confuse me. You think traditional business and a startup. I'm trying to understand that. Traditional business, you mean the real estate or people that do buying and selling or traders, and then they will now want to migrate into doing create technology to sell. Let me understand you properly.
Okay, what I mean by traditional business is, for example, we've talked about sole proprietorship. A person who still runs his business like a brick and mortar business, a person who started entrepreneurship accidentally. He did not do any research, he did not conduct anything. He just knows that, okay, this might be a need and I'm going to start. He did not go through what we might want to call the normal processes that should be done in the 21st century of starting a business. That's what I want to classify as a traditional business. Business is still the business, but what then differentiates what you call a startup from what a sole proprietor does? That's what I want to classify as um, traditional business.
Traditional business. Okay, so you're talking about businesses. Let's say, okay, let me join you and using the word traditional business. People who just do things the normal way, buy, sell, no accounting process, no recruitment process, no accountability generally. So they're only accountable to themselves. Now that's where, yes, you can migrate, but it's just that for you to migrate, you must, one, first things first, be ready to embrace change. You must be ready to embrace other people coming into the transaction, because that's where you have to even start from. You have to get to the level where you can have other people, those who have the expertise that because one, first, you have a vision. You want people to believe in what you're doing. You want people to trust you, you understand your processes, and then trust you. So you need to bring in people that have the right expertise to form that signage that you need. And then again, first and first, you watch yourself, stay away from the business. When I say stay away, those encumbrances, those monkey hand is no more there. You can't just take money from the shelf. Can't take goods from the shelf and then say, okay, let's say we're making clothes and then you start wearing them. So those things, you become accountable to the first group of people, those first internal people that you have brought into the business. As soon as you become that's the first step you have to take. Then you now begin to ask yourself, okay, how do I bring in other people who have funding? Then you need to also, which is one of the biggest problems we must look at, because we don't have standards as regard, this is for me to develop this level of technology. This is how much I am worth. There are no standards. It becomes a big difficult for you to quantify what you're worth. So I always tell people at that point in time, you need to keep records of your expenditures. Now, if, for example, you spent money attending a conference in India because you wanted to meet A, B, C, D, your hotel bill, the receipt has to be there, the ticket money, the receipt has to be there, and all of that. So as soon as you now quantify some of these expenditures, then you can now add your sweat equity. Sweat equity being your intellectual know-how that you have put into developing whatever you have developed. these are things that you will now use as a negotiating tool when you're sitting on the other side of the desk, facing someone who has $1 billion, because he has $1 billion. Doesn't he have time? Because he's looking for how not to, deplete his $1 billion. He wants $1 billion to turn to 1.5 billion or $2 billion. So he's looking at you and you're explaining to him how he should bring out money to put in your business. So those processes has to be, well outlined, well structured, and all of that. So when he sees that, then again, transfer of technology that you're bringing in. So what I mean by guarantee is that it goes back to people that you're bringing as your technical partners have to be known. So they shouldn't be people like you too, who are not known. So I advise, yeah, you pay a little more, you pay a little more, but get the best so that you can actually attract, that money that you're looking.
Has been a very interesting conversation we've been having with Ogbonna Ukuku. He's the executive director of the Nigeria Global Chamber and CEO of ONS Triumph Limited. It's been really, really great having this conversation with you. Now, I would like to say, what's the future of the tech space going to be in Africa? What do you think the future of the tech space in Africa is going to be in the next 5, 10 years?
Wow, the future is quite bright. It's bright in the sense that just like Africans are beginning to, clamor, for younger, system of leadership within all the African countries. Yes, if that happens, you'll now begin to see why and how to, have interface with some of these young people too, who are the drivers of this particular economic space, within in your country. So your ability to have young people run things in Africa, it does, being included in leadership in Africa, gives me hope that the tech space is something is a space where a lot will still happen, and then because and then the educational system will now begin to improve, because the flip side will be if we don't do those things, we'll just keep on depending on people sitting down there in the US and then deciding what happens to you, here and all of that, using their own platforms, and then they're not paying taxes to you because these things are in the air. So there's so much. So there's so much that's going to happen, but we need to be extremely careful. I interestingly, I always want to use one particular phrase for every economy that wants to grow, especially in Africa. There is what I call lifelines. Lifelines have been given to us. We have a very young population. Is a lifeline. If we don't keep these young people here, the migration that is happening, that people want to live here to other countries, will affect that lifeline that we need for to develop Africa as a people. If all Africans begin to run to the US and US is full, Canada does not want to take us anymore, they will start rushing to India and start rushing to Asia. So we need to make design, we have to intentionally design structures and systems that would, encourage, the young people, the young population that we have, which is supposed to be a positive for us, which is a lifeline that we should not play with.
Uh, that's that's really good to hear. Would you like to share with us any personal experience of how you started a venture that got funding and how did it help? Also share with us if you have a business you started that didn't get funded and you bootstrapped.
Yeah. Okay. Let me. I've always worked with like my experience will be working with other people, to that success, to that success cloud. Now, I worked with a company in Lagos that wanted to do a power project. and we worked through the normal process of getting the license, and then the license getting was such a huge work, and I was the one leading on those things because basically part of part of the job to do was to do the government liaison and all of that. It's only in Nigeria. I tell people it's only in Nigeria that there is need for power, and then to get the power, to get what it takes to do the power is very difficult. That's the country needs power. Then you want to put money to do the power. The work to get the power is work. Now you have to interface with at least seven different organizations. Now, for you to do a gas sub, you have to do for you to do a gas sub, you have to get a land in the state, and the land will be given to you by a state governor. You have to get a C of O. This C of O is important because there are things investors will see before they want to put money in your business. Number two, you have to get next license. NERC, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, must give you a license before you can generate power in Nigeria. So you have to go through all of that. And for NEC to give you that, NEC will ask you show evidence of funding. You will show them the land. You will do EIA. And for EIA to come out, you have to go to Ministry of Environment. Ministry of Environment will be the ones that the third organization will give you, they will check, the environment, they do an environmental impact and assessment. So it has to be done during rainy season and during rainy season and then Hamatan. So they have to. So you see, for you to get those two windows, that means at least you must spend at least 6 months for that to happen. Then you come back to NEC again, and NEC will tell you no. We need to even understand your evacuation corridor of this power that you are going to produce because it's not kept on the shelf. There has to be a way to enter the national grid. I'll go to Transmission Company of Nigeria. That's TCN. That's the fourth organization that you have to go to, and those ones to come and do a survey to see that your evacuation corridor is correct. If it's correct, meanwhile, the people that you have signed an agreement with to come and deploy the turbine, they are still waiting for you, and you have done 2 years trying to go back and forth. Then the fifth organization, because you need gas to power that particular turbine, you go to NNPC. NNPC will send you to Nigerian Gas Company, which is the people who the power is domiciled in their hands. And what betide you, they don't have in their budget that you are going to be doing. You need to take gas from a particular well to your location. That gas, that one will be, you have to wait for another year's budget, NNPC year's budget. So that, see, by the time you go through all of this, I'm trying to tell you how the a particular transaction failed. Still trying to go back and forth with all these organizations. My brother, the investors who we had, the Israelites who were willing to put $120 million. By the time we finished, I went back to them. They told us that they have put the money in. That the transaction that they put the money in India, that the transaction has gone far. That they can't even, because these were people who were so enthusiastic. And then myself and my partners, if we put together the money we spent an average of between 5 point something to $6 million to get to the level where an investor will be willing, because they were watching us. They said, these are the things you must do. And like I said, because power, like I said, is not put on the shelf, I was going to mention the sixth organization. You have to go to Nigerian bulk electricity trading company, who gives you a guarantee that when you produce this power, that they will buy, that Nigeria will buy it from you. So those these are the things. So I just give you an example of not good story of trying to do business within our space, because a lot of things are not considered. The efficiency, which is one of the most, which is the capital denominator for everything that you have as a nation, which is the most important thing within all that you have in your country. My dear, if there's no efficiency in your system, nobody will go anywhere with you, and no investor will be ready to wait for you. Like I said earlier, investors don't have time. They don't have time. Their monies have to be working. Money works. You don't just keep money somewhere and think money will multiply. No. So investors are always willing to move very fast. That's why some of these developed countries are attracting so much investment, because people are looking at what they are doing. They know that if I go in here, I can come out. It can actually go in and then come out. at a particular design agreed timing. That was why I was very excited when the president signed the executive order that every document that goes into any ministry, highest 90 days, must get all approval. So these are the things that you will encounter as a business person. Although this is a huge transaction that I just mentioned, are there some that have succeeded? Yes, there are some that have succeeded, but maybe time will not allow us to go into the whole story of the ones that have succeeded. But there are some that have succeeded. It's not just it's not usually very bad like that. Some succeed, but you have to be very dogged for it to succeed.
This has been personal because you've been sharing the experience that you've had. I think this is a point in time in the life of a Nigerian entrepreneur where the level of resilience and grit is being tested. What do you think a Nigerian entrepreneur should do, having faced all this? We have also seen a ride-hailing company in one of the states in Nigeria, and after making huge investments, getting bikes to run errands and to transport people, one government policy will just clamp down on this and you will see investments going down the drain. What should a Nigerian entrepreneur do under this circumstance?
You have to do more. You have to do a lot of forecasting. Do a lot of forecasting in the sense that so some of the reasons that I wouldn't have put my money in those kind of business because I saw it coming. Probably it was just a personal. That's what I was telling you earlier. See, when you're passionate about a thing, always take that thing to someone who is not passionate. The person will see it from a perspective that you will never have seen it. Now, some of these things are driven out of passion. If that transaction came to my desk, I would advise don't put your money in there because the road accidents that have happened because of tricycles and bicycles and bikes are enormous, and it was becoming very alarming. And then I knew someday somehow because the way road safety kept on talking about it, hammering on it, I knew somewhere somehow. And then again, because our identification system was not yet well structured, so it had its own security challenges. It had the life threatening challenges and all of that when it comes to a road accident. I knew it was the transaction. For me, I would tell you, it was a transaction that won't fly. So those are the things. That's why I gave the advice I gave earlier. Every entrepreneur, please, there must be an organized organization. To give you a go ahead, so you can. I think you can go ahead with it.
Really, really, really important. On one side, we believe that government regulations should keep startups in check and balance, but at the same time, it should also be flexible to ensure that it doesn't lead to the group to the death or make the startup bankrupt. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation you've had with us. I was going to say, what are your final words? But then I can no longer see you on the screen. So we've been having this very informative conversation with Ogbonna Ukuku, the Executive Director of the Nigeria Global Chamber. He's also the CEO of ONS Triumph Limited. And this almost 1 hour conversation has been so informative that he's been able to share his own personal experience with us of the journey that a Nigerian entrepreneur goes through to get business done. And beyond making profit, an entrepreneur hopes that he could increase the quality of life of his citizens, and most especially in this country where we are battling with lots of challenges. Although we have challenges, it's also an opportunity for entrepreneurs to invest. However, we also want to ask the government to make the environment easy, the business environment easy, so businesses could happen without inhibitions. We have seen policies of government in trying to make the business environment easy. The government has set up the payback to make sure the environment is easy. We have seen ratings and reports from the World Bank saying that Nigeria is doing well when it comes to the ease of doing business. However, this has to go beyond just numbers to translate into raising the livelihoods of people beyond the poverty line into the empowerment line. Thank you once again for listening to this conversation. We've been having this, and this is the third day. It's been very insightful. We would soon go on a short break while we wait for a workshop. We're going to be having 2 workshops, and so hang on with us while we go on a very short break and come back to have the workshops. Thank you once again for listening. My name is Emmanuel Otori.